Okay, so let's start. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, bom dia, boa tarde, boa noite, depending on where you are. So welcome to this session. My name is João Souza. I'm the coordinator of this project, and I'm also a professor at Porto University and the head of LSTS. First of all, I would like to thank the Air Center for this great initiative. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here. And today we'll be talking about this project, the Marine Robotics Research Infrastructure Network, Euma Robots. Again, it has also been a pleasure and an honor to work with this team. This is a great team and we've accomplished a lot and there's more to come. So this session will be moderated by Fausto Ferreira. And if you have questions, please use the Q&A chat box instead of the chat. Okay, so here's just a second. So here's the schedule. So welcome. And then I'll provide a Eumr overview. Then we'll go into networking activities and breaking the surface field experiment, educational activities, training activities, joint research activities, first in terms of development and then in terms of operations, future outlook, transnational access, TNA in action, and then finally questions and answers. First of all, the reason why we are here, the blue planet. This is a beautiful picture, but this is somewhat misleading. Why? Because we have the impression that there's lots of water, but the naked truth is this one. So this is a sphere representing all of Earth's water, meaning that there's not much. So if we are concerned with ocean conservation, we should be even more concerned now. And the small sphere represents fresh water. So this is an additional motivation and a somewhat dramatic one to our developments. So this is our website. You can go there. And actually today, this is what you'll see, something about our Networking Friday with Eumr. And then to start in a light mode video, there's no sound, but it will give you a sense of what we are doing, a visual sense of what we are doing. So 15 partners from several different locations in Europe and lots of different types of activities. For example, summer schools, and this has been very important. You'll hear more about this later on. So it's not only about classes, but also about hands-on experimentation. Lots of different toys, lots of developments in terms of software, control systems, navigation, you name it. Multiple assets, and you'll see more about this soon. Lots of interesting and exotic operations, some world firsts. testing very complex operations, for example, under ice, to take place in the Arctic. Small AUVs, big AUVs, long-range AUVs that can stay in the water for weeks. Gliders, so no propellers, at least in most of them. ASVs, another type of ASVs. Still yet another type of ASVs. So a huge diversity of assets. Including unmanned air vehicles deployed from ships. The remotely operated vehicles. Very interesting operations. Some of them took place less than 1 week ago. With this ROV, exploring some shipwrecks in Ireland. And also oceanographic vessels, the Celtic Explorer from the Marine Institute. So different research teams, schools. And also communications test bed. This is in La Spezia. And of course, we also have the oceanic platform of the Canary Islands. Quite a unique asset. Okay, and now I'll switch gears and I'll go into the Eumr overview. First, we addressed this call in FRIA 02-2017, integrating activities for starting communities. And the specific challenge was to provide access to the best research infrastructures to conduct research for the advancement of knowledge and technology. An integrating activity must combine three types of activities: transnational access, so providing access to our facilities; joint research activities to improve integrated services; and networking activities to foster cooperation between research infrastructures, RIs, scientists, industry, and other stakeholders. And this was part of motivation for our development. So Europe has a small, robust, and active marine robotics community. But at a time, we felt that there was a lack of integration within this community that was preventing the marine sector from fully benefiting from the exciting developments in the robotics revolution. And the fact is that marine robotics is still, and was and is still, not yet a mature field. The landscape is not fully integrated, and there are some significant shortcomings in terms of standards, testing, evaluation, and integration, and access to RIs, research infrastructures. The main objective of the project is to open up key national and regional marine robotics research infrastructures to all European researchers and also to researchers from third countries, ensuring their optimal use in joint development to establish a world-class marine robotics research infrastructure network. 15 partners: University of Porto, University of Bremen, Marum, ISTID in Lisbon, Eumr from Italy, NERC from the UK, University of Girona, University of Limerick, Pocan, University of Eretwatt, Norwegian University of Science and Technology, the Marine Institute from Ireland, the LTM, Eumr, and also the University of Zagreb. This is a sample of our research infrastructures. So you've seen videos of this, so I won't stay longer on this. And we have lots of different goals. I won't go over all of them, just a kind of a selection of a few of them. So basically the provision of access for researchers from academia in the industry to state-of-the-art infrastructures, to large-scale experiments, also providing opportunities for researchers to develop and evaluate operating concepts, having access to data, provide uniform access to research infrastructures, provide uniform training, enhanced utilization of marine robotics research infrastructures, and contribute to the development of new or upgraded RIs of European interest, contribute to bring the robotics revolution to marine robotics, cross-fertilization of ideas, tools, technologies, and methods, and contribute to the efficient and effective utilization of research infrastructures in Europe. So this is our strategic vision. So it's organized around the evolution of a network model, built on existing networks. It's synergistic with worldwide marine robotic communities, also aligned with strategy for the development of European innovation ecosystem, and will underpin development, and this is very important, of next generation observing systems, provides a single entry point to the marine robotics research infrastructures, and also complements other RIs. Work plan, 8 work packages. WP8 is about project management. WP1 is about strategic implementation of Eumr. WP2, networking, communication, and dissemination. WP3, e-access to the infrastructure. This proved to be very important in these days, precisely because of the pandemic situation. WP4, training and education. WP5, integrated experiments and use cases. And finally, WP6 about innovation, and WP7 is about multi-platform and persistent operations. You'll hear more about this soon. Just a few words about transnational access. Guillaume will say much more about this. So we had 3 open calls and we had 2 modalities of access. So you could access marine robots operated by the partners, or you could be part of a collaborative sea experiment or use cases. And we had a few. Networking activities, this is about cooperation in general sense. It's about articulation with national initiatives and strategies. It's about field training and summer schools. It's about participation in organization of scientific, industrial, and end user outreach events, demonstrations, tutorials, roundtables. And a few examples. Eumr, you'll hear more about these. So there was an edition in 2019. There will be another one in 2021. FOCAN Glider School. Carlos Barrera will talk about this. Then again, there was no edition in 2020. Breaking the Surface event. Then again, a very interesting initiative. So this has been taking place since 2018. And let me just say a few words about joint research activities. So basically, these are about improvements towards integrated URIs. So it is about access procedures, integration, services, increased systems autonomy, multi-asset, multi-partner coordination, and transitioning tools and technologies to the ocean. So it's about field tests and campaigns. So this is what Eumr is about. So we are working towards a world-class marine robotics research infrastructure network. And we think that the time is right for Eumr to have a long-lasting impact. And what you see in the background is a map. In blue, you see locations of the partners. This is not up to date, but in yellow and green, you see locations of institutions that had successful applications to use our infrastructures. Now, some publicity. We'll be organizing a side event during the All Atlantic meeting taking place June 2nd. This will be very important because we'll be discussing lessons learned and future developments. And Eumr will also have a strong presence in the IEEE MTS San Diego Porto Oceans Global Conference. So this is what I had to say in terms of the overview. And now we'll switch to Nicola from the University of Zagreb that will tell us about specific developments.
Hi everyone, thanks a lot, Joao. Let me just share my screen. Hopefully this will work. Okay. Can you see my presentation? Oh, thanks, Gianluca. Okay, so I will be presenting the work package that is related to networking activities, but many of the things that I wanted to focus on, Joao already mentioned. So I will just quickly go through them so that we can jump to the TNAs and to all the research activities that are taking place in the project. Of course, we've had a very wide dissemination, both scientific and general, within the project. And I will not go into specifics when it comes to scientific dissemination because many papers have been published both in conferences as much as the pandemic allowed in the last year and a half, and in journal papers. So in this short presentation, I will focus on the things that we have yet to accomplish or some of the things that I would like all the viewers to invite to participate. First of all, I would like to invite everyone to subscribe to the Eumr newsletter, which is an initiative that started somewhere at the beginning of the project where each few months we have a newsletter where we put together all the major things that each of the partners is working on. So this is a nice way to keep track of all the main activities, not only within the project, but also outside the project within the community. Also, one interesting thing that we organized within the project was Coffee with Eumr. This is an event that was motivated obviously due to the pandemic, where we realized that we hadn't seen each other for quite some time and we enjoy each other's company and we enjoy the company of other people from our community. So Coffee with Eumr, you do not get a coffee when you attend the event, you have to bring it yourself, but you get the chance to experience young researchers PhD thesis, the work that they're doing, which is highly relevant and beyond state of the art. So the next one will be organized by University of Limerick on May 28th at 11 a.m. Central European Time. So I invite everyone to participate. One very important event that is supported by EU Marine Robots and that Joao already mentioned is EMRA. EMRA stands for EU-funded Marine Robotics and Applications Workshop, and it has been organized for quite a few years now. Last year we had to postpone, and it was supposed to take place in person in Pisa. This year we decided not to postpone any longer, but it will take place virtually, again organized by our friends from Italy, specifically from Pisa. It will be hosted by Eumr, and the event will take place from on the 7th and 8th of July. Everybody is welcome to participate. It will be an interesting event. So EMRA is one of the events where you should definitely participate. Another one that Joao mentioned is that we are organizing the side event at All Atlantic 2021. The title is Marine Robotics Infrastructures Network, Lessons Learned and Future Developments. So this will be on June the 2nd. So feel free to join us at that event also. And again, another event that Joao mentioned is Breaking the Surface. This is a workshop that we have been organizing in Croatia for 13 years in a row now. Even last year with the pandemic, we organized the version where only Croatian institutions and Croatian students attended. However, we did have a few online virtual participations. This year, we are determined to have Breaking the Surface live in person in Beograd na Moru from 26th of September to 3rd October. And I'm sure that most of you, well, for those of you who do not know, Breaking the Surface is a summer workshop that encourages interaction between marine roboticists and end users, marine biologists, archaeologists, oceanographers, everybody who has use of these technologies. This is a unique opportunity where people get the chance to work with it, to have hands-on experience with other people's equipment and see how other people's equipment, not only vehicles, but also acoustic modems, various sensors are used. So I would invite you to participate, especially master and PhD students who are working in the area. So with this, I would finalize this short presentation on networking activities. In case you need any more information, feel free to visit Eumr website where everything is published online, and I will be happy to provide you additional details should you need any. Thank you very much. And I should probably give the word to Fausto, who is moderating the session, or to Gianluca.
I think we can go directly to Gianluca.
Okay.
Unless Gianluca wants me to introduce him.
No, that's fine. I can do it by myself. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Let me share my screen. I'm Gianluca Antonelli from University of Cassino in Italy. I'm going to really briefly show you or list the activities on education and training made during these 3 years by the partner of Eumr. Basically, those are the partners. You have already seen the presentations by Joao, so you know them. Here there is a list. We start in 2018 with the Glider School organized by Plokan. Then you already heard by Nikola Miskovic. We had the BTS in Croatia. And then the special session at CAMS. CAMS is a conference on marine technologies. We organized a special session with the EU Marine Robots partners. That was in 2019. An additional Glider School in Plokan. This is a yearly event. And then a Rov training event in Germany, Marum, our partner of the Eumr, in collaboration with another European project on networking, Aerofleet. Another BTS in 2019, as Nicola said. Summer school at LSTS in Portugal, in Porto, last year in 2020. And then, as Nicola said, despite, the pandemic and the issue with COVID, they achieved to organize a BTS 2020, let me say partly in person, with some part in remotely given by speakers and people physically present in Croatia. In a virtual special session at the IFAC World Congress this year, then some of the activities, let me say, moved remotely because of the obvious issues with the pandemic. And for example, in December 2020, the node of Florence and Pisa in Italy, nodes of ISME, organized a seminar together with the Oceanic Engineering Society, a joint student branch chapter, the IEEE, with, well attended. A webinar on robotics and control by our friends in Portugal, IST, Lisbon, in July 2020, so it's not chronological, I'm sorry. And more recently, in 2021, by CMRE, a virtual PhD course organized to the students of the University of Calabria in Italy. The Glider School has been postponed due to, of course, the pandemic, and this is postponed to October 2021 this year. Again, we organized a workshop in marine robotics at the European Robotic Forum. This is an event organized by eRobotics yearly, and actually the coordinator of the topic group in marine robotics are two researchers that belongs to Eumr. So is Gabriele Frerri from CMRE and Enrico Simetti from Genova. Then a special session at AUV 2020, an invited talk by University of Porto at the Second International Forum on Environment and Blue Economy. And you heard already from Nicola the very nice and timely activity of coffee with Eumr in order to foster our relationship that were a little bit slowed down due to pandemic. Some pictures just to show you a little bit what's behind, and another small activity that we organized during Eumr was to foster the exchange of persons. And this has been done based on an idea of Joao, also on a marketplace, so a shared document where we exchanging our desire, let me say, to access to infrastructures of the partners of the consortium. And here is a list of all the exchanges done in those 2 years. Some examples, Dulanad from Zagreb to Limerick, August 2018. Here we have some researchers from Norway and TNU to Portugal in June 2019. A remote operation on the vehicle of Girona made by here from Cassino in Italy by our guys. That was recent in February 2021. Some pictures of BTS, as Nicola said, and it's a very nice, interesting, and a lively event organized in the last 13 years by our Croatian colleagues. Again, 2019, and this is 2020. You can see, the masks of the participants. Some pictures of the Glider School, 2019, with some visitors from Swedish. This is a snapshot of something that is really familiar in the last months, unfortunately, I would say. So a mosaic pictures of all the attendees of a virtual event. Another virtual remote event, I prefer better than virtual, the teaching of CMRE, Roberto Petroccia, to the guys in the University of Calabria. And those are 4 snapshots on the training activity at Marum that involved manipulation, simulation, classes, and hands-on with a vehicle, the real ROV. That was all. Everything, question or curiosity or whatever, you can contact me or any of us to have further information. I hope I stayed in 5 minutes, and I leave the word to Carlos that already taken the screen.
Thank you very much, Gianluca. Thanks, Fausto. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. So as has been already mentioned, so inside the framework of training activities in Eumr project, so there is the glider school as a particular one. So for those not yet or not really familiar with the glider technology, that it's basically one of the actors in the big family of the marine robotics. So many things has happened in the last decade. So I do not plan to go into details on that, but basically this is for context and for to say that the technology has been improved quite a lot. So in the last decade, but not only the technology, also the community users has grown quite good in many senses. And one of them, it's in regards to training. So as you will see later on, there are quite a lot, many groups in the world working with gliders, and that is good thing. And in that regards, we have been supporting the training activities, basically to those starting to learn or start to work with glider for the first time. So the community has met every second year since 12 years ago, approximately, in what it's called the Ego Meeting and Glider School. So that's basically the approach. It's more scientific, technical approach in terms of shared experiences and share results from the activity of gliders, and some showroom activities in terms of demonstration and so on. So we host in Plocan the 5th Ego in 2011, and from that we identify the gap in some way to why not to develop a more hands-on approach for a reduced group of people. But what is key here, it's engaging the company manufacturers and also key actors in terms of using gliders around the world. So then what we provide here, it's the opportunity for a reduced group of people, normally something between 12 and 15 seats, in order for along a week to start to learn on gliders, but basically from the perspective of hands-on training. So we basically include the main commercial technologies available in the market. So from what it's in regards buoyancy-driven technologies, and also including some ASBs, USB technologies like wave glider, autonaut, or sailboy. This is how it looks, the agenda. So nothing specific today to mention on that, but basically the approach is to bring one specific day slot for each technology, merging some, not only what it specifically refers to the glider technology itself, also including some specific sessions on sensor payloads, telemetry systems, data management, and of course there is one final day, normally on Friday, for to do some practice in open waters and in Gran Canaria in that case. So just to give you a flavor about the activities, so there is some theory in the classroom, then we move to the lab, and finally, depending on weather conditions, we go out for, as I mentioned before, open ocean activities. And up to now, the results in terms of attendance and engagement, capacity building, things like that. As you can see here, the countries that has been participating in the glider school, where the 2 last editions has been supported by Euromarine Robots. And you can see here the picture of the 4 initial editions. And Secondly, up to now, this is how it looks in terms of attendance and engagement and contributions from the companies and also research institutions around the world. So some pictures about the groups attending in the different editions. And finally, so what's next? So as Gianluca mentioned, the last edition last year was not possible for the obvious reason. And we are expecting during June and July to run a series of webinars in order to provide some context and some lessons on the glider technology, expecting to be able to do a new on-site edition in October 2021. And that's basically what I have for you today. So thank you very much for attending. And if there is any questions, I think later there is a Q&A session. Thank you.
This is perfect, thank you. So now it's Antonio Pascoal from IST in Lisbon.
Okay, just a second now. My mic was off. Okay, can you see the slides now?
Yes.
Okay,
Perfect.
Good afternoon. I'll try to be quick, even though I have so much to say. This is not advancing. Okay, sorry about this. So I'll be talking about innovation to advance marine robotics, and this brings together all the partners. And what we have in mind is to develop new marine robotic systems and technologies in order to improve the existing infrastructures and afford people interested, people dealing with science and commercial applications, cutting-edge tools for ocean exploration and exploitation. So we bring together theory and practice. And again, the emphasis is on innovative research and engineering. There's a number of tasks included, and this gives you an idea of the large spectrum of topics that we tackle. So the first one, advanced vision, acoustics, and manipulation systems. Second, cooperative navigation and control of network vehicles. Third, hybrid, acoustic, optical, underwater communication networks. Then advanced systems for under ice operations, enhanced underwater large systems, and finally, a very important topic, cooperative human marine robot systems. So I'll glance very quickly through the slides. So 6.1, mostly the contribution of UDG, advanced vision and manipulation systems. And as you know, they have a lot of expertise in this area. So here you see an image of a simulation of one of the vehicles with a manipulator and approaching some object there. They are also doing outstanding work on advanced vision and manipulation systems in what concerns the development of an underwater laser scanner and calibration method, which is a very unique licensed product at this point. And here we have an image obtained with a laser scanner that I happen to like very much. Then still under the same task, Harriet Watt. They were engaged in the development and testing of 2 underwater stereo camera systems. And they have done some very, very interesting work on object detection and recognition for video and sonar. And here you see some of the applications in the video illustrating it. So again, along the same lines now for automated pipeline detection and inspection with minimal human intervention. So coming from the University of Limerick, there are some interesting and exciting developments on upgrading an Aovs system. and they are experts on this. So again, within advanced vision, acoustic manipulation, very, very practical work, clearly illustrating the transition from the lab to the field. And then very interesting study and implementation and testing of an automatic docking system for a dynamic work class ROV. So going to task 2, cooperative navigation and control of networked vehicles. So here we are talking about multiple vehicles. They have to talk to each other, mostly using acoustics and also optical systems. And we see this as a way of the future together with other topics, of course, but more and more we'll see groups, what people call swarms or fleets of vehicles doing cooperative operations at sea. So we have been carrying out studies on the development of algorithms for cooperative motion planning, motion control, and navigation, which are the key ingredients to make these things happen in a networked manner. And then on our side, we carry many of the experiments here in Lisbon. You see the place where we carry the experiments with some of our vehicles, and of course, also with people of CMRE. As Girona did, we also have our network marine system simulator and mission visualizer that allows you to try out things and do hardware in the loop simulation before we go in the water. Along the same lines, very impressive work by the University of Porto on cooperative front tracking by multiple Aovs, and this is up there in the Douro River. And then an approach was also developed to track the Northern Pacific subtropical front using ASVs and Aovs. And there you see a beautiful image of the team with some, which are already many, the vehicles at the University of Porto. Task 3 is an interesting task because it touches upon hybrid acoustic optical underwater communications. And here most of the work is being done by CMRE that developed this cognitive communication architecture. We are cooperating with them here at ISTED by bringing together acoustics and optical communications using our Blu-ray optical modem. And this is the new modem under development, which we hope it will be omnidirectional. So it's currently under construction and it will be tested, we think, next month. So it's very interesting because all these points to the integration of CMRE CCA with IST Blu-ray modem, and this has been completed. Validation tests have been performed. And then what we wish to do is we are in the process of integrating the software and some of the hardware of CMRE in our vehicles, and then carry out tests for cooperative motion control or exchange of information using optical modems between two moving vehicles. There are also some interesting developments on the optical underwater communications front by Eumr to develop and optimize high-performance optical communications, which seems to be very interesting. So the aim, about 10 megabyte per second at 70 meters, and then perspective of harbor trials in 2021. When we advance to T6.4, NOC, Advanced Systems for Under Ice Operations, very important in some of the scientific applications. So the work focused on development, integration of new algorithms for reactive and deliberative avoidance, simulation tests with models, and integration of new sensors in simulation and onboard Aovs. In what concerns T6.5, enhanced underwater large system by Maroon, impressive work on the development not only of the hybrid ROV, but the latching mechanism to enable an ROV hybrid to connect to submerged LARS, which, as you know, is the launch and recovery system. So this was on the drawing board. This is the true system, which is very, very impressive. And some images of the some of the possible docking devices. Now the things have evolved by now. but let's stick to this. And finally, very exciting developments on cooperative human marine robot systems coming from the University of Zagreb. So the goal, and here I show you some figures from an old project called, what was it called? CADI. That was an effort that was spearheaded by the University of Zagreb on the interaction between humans and robots underwater, which is something that has not been fully exploited yet. So there's a potential for a quantum leap in the process of mapping and excavating archaeological sites and enhancing biological underwater surveys. And this is a sample of the impressive work that has been done so far. So development of collaborative motion strategies between a human diver and an autonomous underwater vehicle through what we call exteroceptive recognition and evaluation. So you see here many of the systems that have been developed, vehicles, special gloves to interact, and then the connection underwater between the diver and the robot. So these are some examples of the things that we have been pursuing in the scope of these GRA initiatives. Many papers have been published, and we are quite proud of this. And here again, our objective is to bring together new concepts, new methodologies into the development of new tools that will afford scientific and commercial end users new methods to explore and exploit the ocean. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Antonio. This was great. And now we'll have Ralph Mcmayer from the University of Bremen, Myron, also presenting about GRA and field testing. Thank you.
Thank you, João. I'm just trying to get back to my slide. It does not move back. Hold on a second. I stop sharing for a second and try it again. It tells me sharing does not work anymore. Sorry for that. You see me now?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, perfect. For some reason, the first screen does not show up. Hopefully advanced. Oh yeah. Okay, here we go. Okay, so sorry for this. So my name is Ralph Mcmayer. I'm a professor at the University of Bremen at MARUM, the Center for Marine Environmental Sciences. I'm going to talk to you about GRA on operations a little bit. A lot of things have been already told, so I might be able to skip some things. Here are our partners. You have heard from João already. So quick outline, I'm talking about the operational infrastructure that's present. Carlos told you a little bit about it, and João. So I will be able to accelerate that. A little bit of the operations and cruises and experimental setups that have been done in that group. So on the platforms, João has talked about it. There's in the network through all the different partners, there's a big variety of vehicles available, and here's just a couple of them. There's the remotely operated vehicle ROVs, and you see here on the right-hand side MARUM Squid and Ifremer's hybrid ROV Ariane. And ROVs are well established in the industry. There's various classes. You saw in earlier slides, small video type video arrays or similar ones up to the workhorse work classes. And on the picture here, the Squid is kind of a larger size, but not the largest size of ROVs. It's a 2,000 meter ROV. On the hybrid ROVs, which is an emerging class, Ariane is a representative that MARUM's Rov is another one of those, which basically means it carries its own batteries, and you have a very thin, flexible tether, which is usually fiber optic, gives you a lot of mobility, compared to a thicker tether on the larger ones that has to carry the power down to the vehicles. Of course, you have some drawbacks on other things, like if your tether is so thin, it can break much more easier. And then you have to get some autonomy. Hence, you get the hybrid version of it. So the vehicle has to know what it does, what to do when it does not communicate anymore. Here's a typical setup on the rear deck for the ROV. You have a winch system, you have a depressor weight or garage, like Marine University of Limerick has shown, and the big ROV, that's what you have there. On the other side, you have autonomous underwater vehicles. Well, you have the survey type AUVs, and the upper one is a picture of that. That's the AUV SEAL from Marum. Eumr has similar ones, and National Geographic Center has similar ones available. They're typically used for mapping, monitoring, surveys. You get them in different sizes. You get them from very small, so-called low-cost vehicles to large vehicles that can reach up to 11, 12 meters. I think the Theseus vehicle from the Canadians was a very large AUV, and there's similar ones around in the US now. And then we have intervention AUVs, which are a little bit more in the research domain. And here's a picture from AUV Girona 500 with a manipulator on it. That's from, as I said, from Girona. The other things are autonomous surface vehicles that we have in the partnership, catamaran style. You saw some pictures earlier from Lisbon. NOC has some vehicles, University of Porto has vehicles, and many other partners have some version of vehicles available to be used. And so in this network, we are concerned also about the operations and how can we interchange the knowledge between the partners and others, how to use them and how to efficiently use them. Particular role in that, and Carlos mentioned that, take over the long endurance vehicles. There's two types right now available: unmanned surface platforms. You see a wave glider here, explosion drawing, and underwater gliders. Why is it on the operational side very interesting? Well, they have an endurance of months, so that's very suitable for certain applications like oceanographic applications or monitoring applications. They have a relatively low capital cost, which makes them suitable for a platform pool. But they have a medium operational cost, which means you have now to think about 24-hour, 7-day-a-week operations, how you do that. It's a little bit more complexity. There's some level of automation developed to handle those, but at the end of the day, somebody has to have an eye on it. So that actually makes it very suitable for these pools of vehicles where you can distribute the tasks and keep the operational cost down. At the same time, you have the availability of distributed resources with remote access and training. Plocan is one example of that. These systems are available at Plocan, National Geographic Center, Marum, and other of our partners. On the facility side, here is a picture from Plocan. They have Limas, the base for unmanned ocean systems, and you see basically the systems I just talked about: underwater gliders of various manufacturers, and the surface unmanned surface vehicles, the wave gliders that can be used, maintained, operated at these centered facilities. And you see a list below, and for contact information, please refer to Carlos. At Marum, we've developed a containerized stimulation and training module, which allows us to provide ROV training to people outside of Marum or outside even of our network, so they can get as close as possible a real feel about how it is to operate such a vehicle, an ROV in this case, on the seafloor, and to do that. So quite useful. On the facility side, of course, we have also now the Eumr data repository from the University of Limerick. Here's just a screenshot of the face with the link. So you can, it's a repository where we store our data, where you can access the data, you can subscribe to it. So That's great for our sharing of operational data and make use of data sets in the past and hopefully in the future. On the cruises and the field operation side of things, there have been a number of cruises associated with Eumr. On the German research fleet, we had last year, just prior, or actually at the very beginning of the Corona pandemic, we had the RV Alcor out for about 2 weeks, a little bit less than 2 weeks, in the Ligurian and Alboran Sea. We did some optical communication tests using optical modems, and under a little bit harsher conditions, as you see, we purposefully, in this case, we looked at how the communication degrades with sediment in suspension. And we were quite happy to see some of these optical modems communicating actually quite robustly, not at the 10 megabits that you might see with other modems in clear waters, but we still were able to get some data through it, which was quite encouraging for future operational needs. The other thing that was tested was a Flyout Rov, and I think I show something in the next slide. On the Meteor cruise later last year, we did some more work on the science side of things, recovering observatories, collecting data. There's also a TNA associated with this, with both of these cruises actually. And earlier this year, 5th of January, not the best time for the North Sea, we deployed a relatively small system in the North Sea to collect methane gas using a soft robotic gas sampler equipped with a multi-beam sonar and a navigation system. So one of the things we wanted to figure out, how can we actually use these small vehicles in rough environments in, well, shallow water. This was a 40-meter deployment, not a 1,000-meter deployment like the others. And so that was quite successful, and the data and information is shared with our partners. Right now, as we speak, the National Geographic Center is having some trials with their LROAS, which was developed under Work Package 7. And the objective here is to deploy it under Thwaites Glacier in January, March next year. And so they have been deploying the AutoSub long range in this configuration, a new configuration, and testing it out to check out all the eventualities, or most of the eventualities that vehicles like that could see once it's going to approach the glacier, hopefully next year. New sensors are integrated, in this case, a modified Nortec DVL for navigation purposes. And so we're eager to hear the results, but it's still going on till I think the end of next week. And on the Mcmayer side, there have been some multi-platform operations using optical system visual surveying for the docking purposes. So they did some detection and post-estimation using multi-scale QR codes and developed some control laws in order to approach the docking and basically get a precise orientation of the system. As use cases, automatic docking, it's used for observatories, could be used for data downloads and data mule kind of applications. There were some lab tests done in the pool, and I think they were actually quite successful. What I mentioned earlier about the Flyout Rov, that was in the Mediterranean last year, where we explored two things. This ROV, even if it looks like it's on a tether, the tether was actually just mechanical to keep it safe. The vehicle was actually controlled through an optical modem. You see on the left side on the ROV, there is a modem on top, and the little ROV underneath had the matching modem at the bottom. This was used for remote lighting, where you can provide lights far away from the host ROV to get better images, or remote inspection if it's too if the larger ROV cannot get close to it. And so you see the example in the lower left, where the little ROV actually provided an image, a close-up image of this structure or this organism on the seafloor. So that concludes my presentation. Obrigada for listening. And any questions, please direct them to me or contact me via email, and I'm available for that. Thank you.
Obrigado, Ralph. And now let's switch to Jan, talking about the future outlook.
Okay, good afternoon. I hope you see my first slide.
Yes.
And hear me, okay. I'm Jan Opterbecke with Eumr in France. I'm the head of the underwater systems unit there. And I will give you a brief about the outlook, the future perspectives we see for EU marine robots. And this is tied to the strategic positioning of the project consortium as a research infrastructure in Europe. And you have seen over the last hour an impressive amount of assets, robotics assets of all kinds, surface vehicles, autonomous diving vehicles, remote operated systems, gliders, vessels, and so on, infrastructure installations and test facilities. So it's a very big variety. You have also seen the impressive number excuse me, of research topics that have been addressed and the amount of work accomplished in the project. As Eumr is positioned as a research infrastructure, there's a strong thought and reflection going on our future. To understand this, we see ourselves strategically in the robotics environment. We are organized around the evolution of a network model within the marine robotics community, with a strong synergy with worldwide communities in this area. As well as research infrastructures in other connected areas. We are strongly aligned with the strategy for developments of technology in the European innovative ecosystem for robotics and autonomous systems. And we are in the heart of developments of next generation marine observing systems. As such, we ambition to be in the future the single entry point for marine robotics in Europe. In this way, we complement other large European marine infrastructures such as Eurofleets, SeaDataNet, Groom, and so on. Going back to our core business and our assets, we have seen a lot of different systems. I mentioned the wide scope, and these are available through TNA, transnational actions, to users outside of the consortium in European countries, but even worldwide. The richness and the added value of these robotic installations is still enhanced by the joint research activities and the capacity of the owners and operators of the research infrastructure to still push these beyond the state of the art with continuous ongoing research activities. This brings us to the skill in technology, in research, engineering, in the field of robotics. And these skill sets are paramount to offer the rich infrastructure through services and not only as naked technical assets. So this is maybe the most powerful strength of the Eumr consortium. If we take one step back and look at the strategic framework, we see that we have the infrastructure we have seen, which requires lifecycle management, sustainability, maintenance in order to proceed in the future. We have seen, I've mentioned the skill sets, bringing expertise and expert knowledge, operations, human resources, and risk assessment in the hostile marine environment. So this skill point is fundamental for this research infrastructure. And then we have an ecosystem with interconnected research infrastructures and interactions with other communities. And these will be of very high importance for the future. Now, if we look at the outlook, we have two main areas. We have the life cycle sustainability. How do we, as a research infrastructure, proceed in the future? How can we ensure that these research infrastructure, which are not necessarily research infrastructures in their country and supported by national funding, how will these be available on the long run to users in other areas? How are they borne financially, environmentally, and in terms of human resources for future need? How will they strengthened and integrated further in order to offer an integrated approach and a complete offer of services in marine robots? How will they interact with areas like industrial applications and ocean science, eventually defense, and so on? And behind this is the financial aspects. On which model will we be able as a integrated research infrastructure to position in the European environment? The second area is the synergies with existing research infrastructures. I mentioned some of them. You see them here, Eurofleets, which is a huge network of research vessels for ocean sciences. And those are basically national infrastructures brought together in a wide network like Eurofleets. So they are in a matured technical environment. Group 2 is focusing on networks of gliders. EMSO is focusing on underwater deep sea observing systems, especially stationary long-term observation systems. And there are evident links to marine robots in these areas. I want to mention SeaDataNet as well. The collection and the storage and access provision for data coming out of sea operations is of huge interest and is paramount to the valuation of marine robots and their operations. So we need to include these. My screen is black. I don't know why. I will just start this slide again. I'm sorry for that. So we have to look for development of the synergies and how to work together with the transnational access on other research infrastructures which operate on different timescales. So we have to look for synchronization possibilities in the TNA calls, maybe new ways to offer TNA through continuous calls in order to be able for users to get access simultaneously to an ROV or an AUV in EU marine robots, a research vessel within Eurofleets, and access to data center services. So there we should think about and elaborate ways in order to use these different assets together.
And we are convinced that intra-community TNA, which is not existing today, would have strong potential for the further integration of our research infrastructure. As a conclusion, marine robot is a key enabler in its area, and we need, in order to exist and develop as a long-term research infrastructure, the commitment of the European community supporting this approach. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. This was perfect. Lots of food for thought. And now Guilherme will talk about TNA.
Yeah.
Thank you, Guilherme.
Hello, good afternoon. I'm Guilherme Vallegrosa from University of Girona, where I'm a postdoctoral researcher, and I'm going to talk about transnational access. I will talk mainly on how we manage this TNA access, and then in the next presentation, Nalu is going to talk about some examples of the projects that we did on this transnational access. So maybe first start on what is the transnational access. So to explain it easily, is that we as a project, we offer access to our assets, like you can see here all the assets that you already seen in the previous presentation. So you have AUV, ROVs, surface vehicles, even drones, gliders, some ships, acoustic modems, and computing centers. And we offer this to any non-partner of the project to come and use these assets for free. Here you can see a clear video on how to apply and to whom is directed this. So here basically you seen the main steps that you had to do to apply for this TNA access to our assets. So the first step is to download the applicant package from our website. So in this applicant package, you had the guideline for applicants, which explains how is the process of application, how it will be evaluated. And then you have a one-page description of each of the assets that you can request access to. As you can see here on the bottom, so we have different assets and they explain which kind of sensors you will have access to, where you can do these experiments and so on. Then all these small one-page descriptions of our assets are linked to the infrastructure catalog, where we have a detailed explanation on maybe how and which training are you going to get to know how to use these Aovs, for example, which operating system do you need, how to access the sensor data, and so on. Then we have a simple application form, so a first administrative form on name of the project, who is requesting the project, and which asset are you requesting exactly. And then we have a 8 pages project where you explain your background and exactly what you want to do in this TNA access, how you will do it, and finally, which is expected dissemination. So for example, if you were going to publish papers or something else. Then also, because when you finish the TNA access, you have to give us back a report. There is a report template on what it should contain once you finish the experiment. So that administrative part again on the left, and then what were the objectives, what you achieved, which problems do you have, and other questions. And finally, another important one, there is a contract agreement model. So this is the agreement between the applicant and the infrastructure provider, and they agree on exactly how will happen the access, and all the contracts that the partners offer are based on this contract agreement model. So then if you want to do a project, the idea is it's optional, of course, but you contact the infrastructure provider and discuss the proposal. So maybe you can even improve what you want to do, or they will say some things that you can improve, or maybe you can find other options on how to do your project. Finally, you fill and upload the application form, and you wait for the response from the project. So the evaluation process, it has some different phases. So you submit your project. Sorry for the dates, this is quite old. So you submit your project, then there is an eligibility check by the coordinator, because the only limitations in asking for a project is that you cannot be a partner of a Eumr project, and you cannot ask for a facility that is from your own country. Then the second step is the feasibility check, that this is done by the access provider. So for example, if you ask for a project with an AUV from my institution, I will check that what you ask to do, it's really possible to be done with our TNA. And then we have individual evaluations, which are at least 3 different evaluators per submission. And here we have internal, so from the project reviewers, and also external reviewers. Then finally, there is a consensus evaluation where we take into account all the individual evaluations, and we decide which projects get granted. Then we communicate these projects success to the users that applied, and then it's only then the users and the access providers only have to sign the contract agreement and finally do the TNA access, and after that provide the report. So the criteria that we give the individual evaluators is something like this. So scientific and technical quality of the infrastructure time proposal, quality of the work plan, scientific qualification track record of the proposing PI and the user group, technical capability to carry out, collaboration with other partners, and training of young scientists and public outreach. Now we're going to see the TNI calls in numbers. So we had 3 different calls. Here you can see a timeline of our project. So this is a 3-year project. So it was supposed to finish by 1st of March 2021, but we got a small extension because of the coronavirus situation and because a lot of TNAs were planned to be in person. So in orange you see the time that people had for the submission process, and then in blue the evaluation time, which usually was about a month, and then we got the answer to all the applicants. And you can see here for the 3 calls, the number of submissions and the number of approved projects. As you can see, it increased a lot from the first call to the second call, but decreased a lot on the third call. This is due to COVID, but also mainly because we're offering a lot less infrastructure in the last call. If we look by continent, we had submissions from all over the world over the 3 calls, mainly from Europe, but a lot of calls from Asia and America also. We look at the map. Here is the latest one. So each color is a different call, and in blue you have the 15 partners infrastructures. And as you can see, we got from all over the world. If we look by area, most of the applicants were from academia, so mainly universities, but we got some applicants from industry wanting to test maybe some of their sensors with some vehicles that they don't have available. Then we had some private research and development institutions, some public, and some government agencies from other countries. COVID affected us a lot, especially on the third call, which opened on 1st of March 2020. So in the middle of the submission process, we have to delay 2 times the submission because there was so much uncertainty on travel and everything that we had to delay it until June. And for most of the projects that were already approved but not executed, some of the projects had to be adapted to be done remotely, which was a big effort by all the partners to be able to do this. And some of the projects, because they had to be in person, most of them are delayed by this spring, summer before the project ends. And some lessons learned. So general dissemination is very important, but direct contacts on people that you think that might be interested in using your installations, it's more effective. In call 1, we had very generic submissions, but overall the quality was quite good. In call 2, we had very excellent proposals advancing in the state of the art. And in call 3, we offered the remaining access and we adapted to the COVID situation. We noticed that some applicants applied again in subsequent calls. Even in the same call, some applicants applied for different projects at different infrastructures. And also, there was a lot of uncertainty around the COVID situation, and we need to adapt all the projects to do them either remotely or to delay them. And with this, I finish my presentation about the managing of the TNA activities. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks very much. This, then again, was great. And now we'll talk about TNA in action.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. I will start my presentation. Just a second. Okay. Can you see it well? Can you see? Yeah? Okay. So thank you for my colleagues for already mentioning a lot of the project. And I will talk about a little further about the TNA actions developed. So as they presented, the TNAs provided access to technologies and infrastructures such as and physical infrastructure or software infrastructure such as the robotic or remotely operated vehicles, autonomous underwater and surface vehicles, Android underwater arms, Husky mobile robots, the testing sites, laboratories, water tanks, research vessels, and software such as the high-performance computing and cloud computing infrastructures. And some of the TNAs developed were done either to develop new technologies, improve existing technologies, analysis of performance of the vehicles, and research. So regarding technology development, we have the example of the multi-user surface LBL network provided by University of Zagreb.
Nalo, sorry to interrupt, but can you just switch to full screen, because we are seeing two screens now.
Oh, sorry about that. I'm not quite sure how I can do it. Okay, I'll just share, stop sharing and share again. Is that okay now?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. No worries.
So the second example is the model-based control architecture for autonomous underwater vehicle, which was provided by the University of Girona with the collaboration of Tampere University from Finland. And the presentation stopped working now. Okay. So in the technology improvement, the first example was actually the second phase of the last example, where the model-based control architecture for the AUV was tested in a real environment. And the second example of technology improvement is the localization approaches for underwater autonomy. And I will leave you with a very short video of this example.
And we have the AUV, the Filippo AUV, moving underwater here in front of us.
Everything is fine. If you have some comments from...
Yeah, so which sonar is mounted at the end on Filippo, and in which orientation it is?
The sonar is mounted basically in order to have a look in front of the vehicle, and it has an angle of about 30 degrees from the horizontal plane.
Thank you. I hope you enjoyed it. Let's keep on talking about technology improvements. Oh, sorry. about that. So talking about technology improvement, there are other examples like the multi-AUV area coverage under currents provided by University of Porto with the collaboration of Finda Prasta Institute of Information Technology, the cloud-based coordinated mission controller fleet of ASVs provided by University of Zagreb, with Huazong University of Science and Technology, and the integrated software for underwater vehicle interoperability provided by University of Porto with the University Politécnica de Cartagena. And these three are examples of software development and testing. Now, talking about performance analysis, we have the identification and variability study of hydrodynamics parameters for underwater vehicles through smooth particles hydrodynamics techniques, and the identification of the dynamics of underwater gliders. And now about the research TNAs. The first example were actually two TNAs where the ASVs and where the one ASV and AUV were applied for studying mesoscale structures in the south of Gran Canaria. The second example, a gliders look at the impacts of a long and narrow submarine canyon on the slope circulation was done at the Nazaré Canyon by the collaboration between Plocan and the Instituto Hidrográfico in Portugal. And the last example, detection mapping of submarine CO2 SIPs, provided by ISME and with the collaboration of Jacobs University. And the last research examples were where scuba divers interacted with ROVs. The first example is the shipwreck mapping in Donegal. It was lively presented on YouTube. You can see the link here if you would like to see it. It's a long video, but it's very interesting. And the last example is the survey and mapping of Falconera Cave. And to finish the presentation, I would like to leave you with a short video of the project Adriatic. It was one of the last TNAs developed between the University of Zagreb and the University of Auckland. And it was also done remotely with both parts. So I just leave you with the video.
Thank you, Nalo.
Thank you. I have just stopped the video, otherwise it will start again. Thank you for the present. Oh, no. Thank you. So if you'd like to see a little bit more about the TNA actions, you can just go to the link on the screen. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Nalo. We are now opening the session of questions and answers. We have already plenty of questions, so I hope we'll have time to answer all of them. I'll start. The first one is for João, and it's about how emerging economies can be part of the marine robotics evolution, taking into account that these equipment's deployment and maintenance are, of course, expensive. And related to that, how many people from emerging countries have we had in our activities? Do we ever conduct capacity building activities in emerging economies?
Okay, so I'll try to be quite succinct because that's a question that really requires lots of time. So there are several ways to go. One of them has to do with the fact that because of the COVID situation, we switched to a mode in which we are providing remote access to our facilities, meaning that those can be made available to participants, let's say, from other countries. So that's one way to go. The other way to go is that we are also making available tutorials and seminars and courses on our website, meaning that in terms of training, in terms of getting acquainted with what we are doing, you can also go to our website and access those, let's say, those courses. There's also another trend, which is being able to share some developments, especially in regard software. So please keep in mind that most of the software that we are using and developing, it's open source. And so there's another way to go. And then finally, I think that we can start by developing, let's say, in other countries, and we can help with that, developing simple systems that can be easily replicated. And there are lots of initiatives along those lines that provide a good way to develop capabilities that later on could be evolved into more complex and interesting systems. And of course, we are open. That's the reason why we are here. We are open to cooperation, and please don't hesitate to contact us if you feel that there's room for additional cooperation. Finally, just one additional note, which is I believe that probably under Horizon Europe, there will be opportunities for enhanced cooperation along the lines of what I've just described. So thanks very much. I know it was a very succinct answer, but then again, we don't have time to provide a longer one.
Thank you. So we have, it's hard to choose which questions are next because we really have a lot of questions. There's a question on if we develop any research and technology on low-cost marine robotics. I don't know if João wants to say something about it or anyone else.
I can say something about it, but then again, I think it would be great if other partners could pitch in. So, and this ties also to the previous answer. There are ways to start kind of developing and playing with systems that can already do some stuff and are not really expensive. And starting with some vehicles in the market, but also starting with some other small systems and technologies that are typically open source. And I would really recommend, and sorry, I noticed that my video was off, and I would recommend also taking that route. I don't know if you guys want to pitch in other partners.
I'll have also questions for specific other partners, so don't worry.
Yeah, but
Please.
specifically in this aspect, I don't know if you, let's say, any of you would like to say something.
I think if I just chip in, there has been developments in lower cost systems globally on anything from, I guess, what they call prosumer quality kind of devices that have made things more accessible. I mean, there's a couple of things that are still very hard once you go longer and deeper, namely navigation and energy, which are not cheap to solve. But what has happened now is that the sensing has been the dominating cost on these vehicles. It's not the vehicle itself that costs you the money anymore. It's actually the sensors, if you talk about multi-beam or anything of this kind. So, but I hope, my hope is, and I think that's where a pretty strong development train goes, is in lower cost sensors. And so we can do more in the sensing domain. Lab on chips is a very promising kind of technology that has been around for a while. It hasn't come through yet, but I haven't given up hope on that. And there's some other CMOS-based sensor, solid state sensing is developing very rapidly. So I think there will be lower cost platforms, but there's still a couple of key issues that have to be resolved depending on the tasks you have at hand.
Thank you, Ralph. I have a question actually for Ralph and Antonio on the communication ranges, but this of course depends a lot on what type of equipment you are using. So the question was just, how far can you communicate between the robots?
If I just continue, and Antonio, you can
Sure.
fill it. We used a commercial optical modem for communication, and that particular one, we initially used the short range one, which was 7 meters, and we got pretty reliably 5 to 7 meters of range, even if there was some suspended sediment in the water. Of course, not when it's very thick, but that's what you got. The modems have reached more than that. They go up to apparently 50 meters with a much higher bandwidth, up to 10 megabits per second. And I have to see that happening. I haven't tried it out personally. I hope I do that in the next 6 months. I don't expect 10 megabits at 50 meters necessarily at all times. But the key, and I think you have seen that in some of the GRAs here, is this merging of or multimodal communication between optical and acoustic. So you use optical when you can and acoustic when you need, because it's not only the speed, well, it feeds into speed. The optical has a good range for some inter-vehicle communication and data downloads, but for us in the AUV world, it's also important that the joules per bit you pay are very low compared to an acoustical modem. Of course, an acoustical modem, you can have communication ranges of up to kilometers depending on the frequency, but at a dial-up modem speed, if you're lucky, then. So, thank you.
Maybe if I can pitch in, Ralph, we have worked quite some time with the Bluecom modems, and we had 60 to 80 meters easily with, let's say, 5 megabit per second rates. And but it's as always a question of weight, of volume, of the price tag. And so the Bluecom modem uses cathode tubes, and they are sensitive and big. And so our development uses semiconductor solutions, and is quite small, and we hope to have approximately the same range. What is surprising is that some rate of turbidity in the water is increasing the quality of the transmission, because the particles, suspended particles, diffuse the light even wider. And in acoustics, we have the same compromise to find between the size of transducers for low frequencies, which will And then the energy, we have electrical energy, we have to pump into the transducer. So this will scale the electronics package. You mentioned in your earlier answer the requirements of going deep, energy and so on, pressure protection, and if we need bigger range, we will go into lower frequencies, and things will get bigger and more expensive. And this is exactly the same for communications. So we have a wide choice nowadays of technologies. And I think in this project, we have seen that a lot of effort has been put in providing cost-effective solutions and answering the need for lower cost solutions in the future.
So Fausto,
Okay.
if I may. So
yes, sure.
Yeah, regarding the Blu-ray modem that we developed, it's very cheap. I mean, the cost of manufacturing that thing is about less than 200 euros. And of course, it doesn't consume too much power. And from our experience, we can communicate up to twice the visibility distance as measured by a Saki disk, which means in clear water, we could go up to 16 or 17 meters, that's all. So now we are bumping up the baud rate by implementing everything on FPGAs, and we expect to be able to reach 1 megabit per second. Now, the thing that is really challenging in optical communications is if you really have the two modems aligned, then it's fine. But if you want to do communications between moving vehicles, then the problem of steering the beams so that they can lock becomes a problem, unless you have what people are now starting to work on, multi-directional or omnidirectional optical modems, because usually you don't want to waste all your energy beaming into all areas of the ocean. But on the other hand, if it is too narrow, then it's very hard to do the locking. So far we have been using our optical modems together with acoustic modems. We use acoustics to do cooperative motion. And then when the vehicles lock into formation, they are close to each other, then they can exchange some form of data using optical. But using optics to do the real coordination, we have not been able to do this yet. So it's very interesting because it's a nice interface or frontier boundary between communications and controls. Okay.
Antonio, I'll have another question for you just in a bit. So I have 3 or 4 for different people. I'll ask you to be short and concise. For Carlos, there's a question, 2 questions related. If you have scholarships for participants from developing countries and for students in general, regardless of the country, because we have some people that are also interested, even if they're not students, they would like to come to your glider school and perhaps have something dedicated to markets such as oil and gas and fisheries and aquaculture. Carlos?
Yes, so the first question, the answer is yes, we have. So we can provide some scholarships. It depends on the moment and the edition, but normally, as far as I remember from the previous editions, we have been able to provide some scholarship in that sense. And the second question, if I well understood, it's applications in regards the oil and gas sector.
Yes, or in the fisheries. We have more talks related to markets instead of just technical piloting.
Yeah, specifically for that. So to my knowledge, so there are several examples of applications on underwater gliders and also autonomous surface vehicles in this sector, specific sectors. So I don't know which is the goal of the question, but if the question is yes or not, I will say yes. So in many cases. So there is, for example, one specific example that probably many people attending today has already heard. It's in the Gulf of Mexico, where it was the BP disaster. So many gliders were deployed in order to monitor in quite real time approach the dispersion of the hydrocarbon effect. So in that area, so that's one clear example of improvement on the technology, more than to go there with different research vessels or just the vessels to monitor that. So to deploy autonomous systems is more reliable and more efficient than the old approach. So that's an example. In Norway, I'm aware that they are also using in oil and gas sector, so autonomous surface vehicles to monitor different essential ocean variables, not only for the quality, water quality control, also to decide if it's there are good conditions or not to perform different activities related specifically for oil and gas sectors. And then plenty of examples. Yeah.
Thank you. So I have now, this is hard to choose, but I'll have at least one question for Jan and one question for Antonio before we close. Very interesting questions. This will be hard to answer, I'm sure. So for Jan, how does this growing number of types of marine robotics equipments and devices integrate with other ocean observation assets, from buoys and oceanographic vessels to satellites? And what about integrating these with citizen science data? As a long-lasting infrastructure, how you can collaborate with other infrastructures and networks?
Okay, well, there are several aspects to this. First, a lot of applications and a lot of use cases are linked to ocean sciences and environmental questions and so on. So the use of drifting buoys is a little bit in the same field of the use of gliders, and anyway the robotic Eumr variety of assets is complementary in observation capabilities to drifting buoys, for example, or fixed seafloor observatories, and as such, the end users more and more often wish to associate in their projects the different kinds of tools that exists. And in this sense, it will be paramount in the future to have joint propositions and joint offerings associating drifting buoys, gliders, robots, surface vehicles, and so on. And we are at this stage, Eumr is in its last phase, and we are working in dialogue with other consortia in these linked areas in order to prepare future steps in order to allow the associated use of different kinds of assets and infrastructure. I don't know if this fully answers the question, but it is certainly a challenge to give access to end users, especially in ocean science, to these different kinds of tools that answer the requirements for spatial and temporal variability of phenomena in the sea. Then there was a second question on the long-lasting availability of the infrastructure. Of course, the TNA, funded by the European Union and here in Eumr, is now structured. We put a big effort in having these very structured approach for TNA and GRA, and there now we have on our side big expectations for Horizon Europe, for example, and this is mirrored by what happens in Eurofleet Plus or Groom 2 or CDataNet in order to have a long-lasting approach at European level. I do not speak only about funding. For up to this stage, these infrastructure projects have been 3 or 4 year adventures and efforts, and maybe with successive projects in the case of Eurofleets. But still we are now having this question, how can we build a long-term structure of these different kinds of RIs.
Thank you. So before I go to the last 2 questions, there's a couple of questions I'll answer myself for the sake of brevity. Yes, there are marine robots that can be used for detection of marine litter, plastic pollution, and sargassum mats. Artificial intelligence plays an important role in the execution of the missions, especially in the sensing part for sonar and camera processing. And then for Guilherme, quick question. Can the assets be deployed in other geographies, for instance, in sub-Saharan Africa, through the TNAs?
I don't remember exactly, but the idea is that with the different access that you had the specifications on where you could do the experiments. So, for example, since, for example, Marine Institute was offering their ship time, some people asked for another access for example, for a ROV while that ship was in another place.
Mm-hmm.
So you could combine them, but directly going to another country, I don't think anybody was offering that.
Okay, thank you. And now the last question, which is for Antonio. It's a double question. I'll start actually answering to the first one about regulation of autonomous equipments and if there's any harm to people or environment, who will be responsible. This is something still, it's a hot topic. It's not yet solved. I investigated this aspect myself, and it's not yet clear what will happen, who will be liable, and in court how we solve this, because legislation is not yet ready. I don't know if then Antonio wants to add more on this, but the final question for Antonio is that we have all these systems able to communicate, swarm, decide autonomously, and that's very interesting. It could be used for from biodiversity monitoring to military surveillance, but how can we be sure that these swarms do not become rogue singularities and cause problems to the environment or provoke international incidents? And with this, we'll close after the answer.
Well, first of all, I don't like the word swarms because, you know, it conjures up the images of thousands of vehicles doing wonderful things in the water. Let me say that about 15 years ago, if we had one of the vehicles in the water and it behaved well, we would be extremely happy. Now, over the past years, and let's say, I think now I've seen projects where people operate 6, 7, or 8 vehicles, not more than that. I may be completely wrong. So we are still very far away from using swarms. Now, whether that can cause problems to the environment or not, I mean, it's like anything else. I mean, we develop the equipments, the tools, the strategies, and then someone could use those tools for bad things. I'm more worried about the ethics that should be involved in putting some form of intelligence on these vehicles, and if they start to being used strongly for military applications, who's going to control the power that these vehicles will have about deciding, invading some area and detonating something? That's something that I'm extremely concerned about this. I mean, I attended a workshop on UAVs, and there was a gentleman from the Pentagon, and someone asked him, aren't you concerned about this technology being used for destructive purposes without any concern for human ethics? And he said something that really shocked me. Well, you guys have to believe us. We have people that program them, and those people have ethics in their behavior, so you should relax about it. I don't believe it. So I'm more concerned about the ethical aspects of the whole thing.
Are you concerned
Antonio?
about... oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Just to complete, if anyone is concerned about them, I mean, because the question was also if the robots could become rogue singularities, and be intelligent themselves alone, or is on the human ethics the issue? Is not on the robots themselves.
No, I'm concerned about endowing these robots with sufficient, I don't know, let's call it artificially intelligent, that in some day is going to embody what goes through the minds of the programmers, but for some reason they acquire some bad habits. You never know. I mean, you have seen these with drones, right? Now we have the capability of having these drones identifying people, deciding that's a bad person and shoot at that person. This is terrible. And I can see the same thing happening underwater. For example, many years ago, I received a paper to review that really upset me, and it was coming from India, that I consider to be sort of a peaceful country. And the thing was called, I don't remember the title, but it was a proposal to protect harbors. And the idea was to have a swarm of underwater vehicles that upon detection of some enemies coming, they would blow themselves up underwater. I mean, all sorts of crazy things. All right.
Thank you. There was someone that wanted to say something, please.
Yeah, I wanted to okay, sorry.
Jan, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, I just wanted to comment that we have ethics in ocean research in terms of environmental and ecological questions, and this is has gotten, of course, and happily a big importance. For example, the underwater systems we designed 10 or 15 years ago used steel shot as ballast, and that was dropped once the vehicle was close to the seafloor for operation, and possibly again another load in order to go up again like a balloon. And today we the end users request and even the legal conditions for sea operations request that nothing is left on the seafloor and not even inert material. And so newer generations of vehicle get back to water ballast and or thruster-driven descent and ascent phases, and this has a significant impact on system design because you need more power, or you need to organize differently in terms of the engineering, and this can have significant impact. But it is the tolerance we allow ourselves in operating or tackling engineering questions for deep sea intervention has completely changed over the last 10 years, possibly. And today we would not allow what possibly would have been accepted a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Ralph, please, and then we need to close.
Just quick. I think there's other concerns that are more immediate right now in terms of the threat, and that's actually that it's totally asymmetric. I mean, if you remember where these underwater vehicles to some extent are derived from, is coming from torpedoes and other things. So they were weaponized before, and intelligent or not, it's harmful. But at the same time, you look at developments what are semi-submersible used for smuggling or other things. You don't need to worry about intelligence and swarms necessarily right now because there's a lot of threats already present. So I think, yes, we have to worry about it, but I think there's immediate problems already there that are not coming out of our domain, but it's more of a detection problem right now than actually putting these things into it. Sorry.
Thank you. So I would like to thank all the speakers, all the attendees, and invite you to follow on our website all the updates. As we mentioned before, we'll have a coffee with the Marine Robots next week on Friday, 28th. And then on the 2nd of June, we'll have a side event of the All Atlantic Forum. News on the website will be published between today and Monday on these events. So please keep in touch, and I hope you all enjoy this event. I don't know if you want to say anything or anyone else wants to intervene, please.
Just have a nice weekend. Thank you. And bye
you.
to all.
Yeah, same thing. Thank you.
all.
Thanks
Thank
to
you.
the organizers. Bye.
Bye. Take care. Stay safe and stay sane.
Be happy.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
See you soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.
And I
Bye-bye.
hope to see you in BTS, the first present event this year, maybe.
Thank you.
Bye.